Hello, I'm Nate, aka B-Tier Mutineer, and this week marks 2 years since I posted my first video on this channel. So this video is going to be a celebration of my channel, a look back on this year with the new games I've enjoyed the most, as well as my favorite videos that I've made, and a look ahead at my future plans with the channel in 2026. Nothing is set in stone for the future other than the promise that I'll be making videos for years to come because I love this channel and it's a super important part of my life. But other than that, B-Tier Mutineer is a labor of love, so the videos I make are always only going to be related to games I care about, with Dragon Age Origins of course at the top of that list. I couldn't ever imagine at the time of starting my channel that I could keep making videos consistently, or that I'd have more than a few hundred subscribers, or 1,000 at most, but people have surprised me. You've actually been enjoying my guides and reviews and discussions about games enough to subscribe. Some of you have even joined as members, which is wild. Absolutely crazy that someone enjoys my channel enough to want to support me. So I'd like to say a special thank you to my members who genuinely allow me to keep going by supporting me. Do consider joining if you want to and if you can afford it, as it would help me out a lot, but know that I'm grateful even if you just like the videos if you enjoy them and maybe leave a comment. For a channel as small as mine, literally anything helps. Looking back at 2025, it was actually a good year for games, at least in terms of the kinds of games I personally enjoy. I'm not going to mention every single game I've played that I liked because this is just a relaxed video to end the year on, so I'll just list a few standouts. Ale Abbey got its 1.0 release in September, but early access began in February, so that's when I started playing. Actually, I played a demo during a Steam festival and loved Ale Abbey so much that I mentioned it in a Steam Next Fest highlights video and immediately bought it when it came out. But I only played initially for a few hours and decided to wait for the 1.0 release since I wanted to experience the full game that the devs had in mind, not just in little pieces added together over time. And the 1.0 version was well worth the wait. I even got my wife to play it and she loved it. It's a super cute and fun management game that's not too hard, so you get to relax while playing it, but don't take this to mean that it's easy. It isn't. It doesn't hold your hand, so you have to experiment with your recipes and rooms and everything to figure out what works for you, which is exactly what a good management game does, at least in my opinion. It gives you just enough to teach you the ropes, then lets you play around to discover your favorite approach. I've spent so much time perfecting recipes for different kinds of ales and beers, and there's something extremely satisfying about balancing all the ingredients and properties of the recipe that scratches a very particular itch. So especially because it's a very affordable game as well, €15 normally, $9.74 during the Steam Winter Sale, it's one of my top recommendations for sure if you're into this genre. Blueprints came out of absolutely nowhere in April, and it's one of the few puzzle games I love. I'm not usually a big puzzle fan, but I greatly enjoyed the narrative and atmosphere of Blueprints. I will be honest, I mostly watched my wife play it and wrote down a lot of notes with her and figured out puzzles together, so I didn't play it by myself much since by the time I bought it, I'd already seen her play through most of the game. But I love the whole idea of it. The random rooms, the sense of loneliness as you navigate the empty spaces of your family home, the story of your character's family and the country you're in, the regime people live under. Yeah, it's just a wonderful game, even if it can get a bit frustrating at times to get the right combination of rooms and items. That just comes with the elements of randomness, but at the same time I don't think Blueprints would be as fun if it didn't have the random elements. If you haven't tried it, and you at least enjoy the occasional puzzle game, it's so good. Together with Portal, Portal 2, and the Siberia series, Blueprints joins the tiny list of puzzle games I love. You may notice that the main thing connecting all of these is that they have great story and world building, which makes them feel more than just puzzle games. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 came out in February, and while I wouldn't call it one of my favorite games, I did very much enjoy exploring the first large area and trying out different builds. The story is a bit too linear for my liking, and it's hard to make me care about the protagonist of an RPG if they have a personality and backstory set in stone. The only exception to that being Disco Elysium, but it gets around the fact that you're playing a fixed character by giving him amnesia. Henry, on the other hand, is just the way that he is, even if you do have a lot of options in terms of his build, and a decent amount of choices in conversations and quests. I also think some of the side quests are tedious and not well designed, and those are actually what ended up burning me out on KCD2 before I got to Kudenberg. I will eventually get back to the game and try to go further through the main story, enough to at least be able to explore Kudenberg, but yeah. KCD2 isn't fully my cup of tea, and yet I'm still grateful that it was made because it is an incredibly high-quality RPG that the devs poured a lot of passion into, and it shows. and I will always support games that people make with love for the genre and love for the themes. The Outer Worlds 2 came out in October and immediately became my favorite game of this year and one of my all-time favorite RPGs. It has that good Obsidian RPG flavor of play your own way, while also having a writing style that personally appeals to me. I already loved the world building of The Outer Worlds, but the story was a bit too short and rushed and didn't feel as emotionally impactful. Whereas in The Outer Worlds 2, things feel a bit more grounded, the characters, especially the companions, have more depth, and the story just feels a lot more emotionally resonant and personal. To be fair, the story setup of being betrayed by someone in the prologue is far more effective at making you care than the kind of random way you stumble into the story in the first game. But more than anything, I think Toad 2 is an amazing RPG to me because it feels like an older RPG in the way that it's designed. And to someone whose favorite RPG is from 2009, and actually most of my favorite games are from the 2000s, yeah, of course that appeals to me. I'm just really glad to see that RPGs like this still do occasionally get made, even if I potentially have to wait many years before another one appears. But who knows, maybe games in this older style are going to become popular again sometime soon. Tiny Bookshop came out in August, and it's one of the best cozy games I've ever played. I'm honestly surprised it took so long for someone to make a game about owning a bookshop that actually feels cozy and doesn't just feel like a chore. I think the main reason it feels so good is because of the unique feature of recommending books to your customers, and there's various interesting events sprinkled in like special conversations with NPCs or special occasions happening throughout the year in different locations around town. So it just feels really nice to move around with your mobile bookshop, decorated appropriately for wherever you're going. And by the way, they recently added the option to save different presets of your bookshop so that you can more easily switch decorations based on location, theme, or time of year. They also added a ton of new books to the game in the recent winter update, as well as of course a bunch of new decorations. I haven't had a lot of time to play recently, but I did play this for a little bit in preparation for this video because I wanted to check out what was new and had an absolute blast. So yeah. I love Tiny Bookshop, and I love it even more because the devs have put in the effort to improve it based on player feedback. 2 Point Museum came out in March, and it is by far the best game in the 2 Point series. So far, of course. The series keeps improving with each title, so it's likely the next game is going to be even better than Museum, though of course there's also the player's personal preference for the theme to be taken into account. Like, I didn't necessarily like Campus better than Hospital because of the gameplay improvements, but more because I love the idea of managing a university and keeping students and professors happy and such. With TPM, there's also the advantage of museums being so varied in terms of exhibits and themes, so they really went ham with this one, and on top of the already great base game content, they added a fantasy Dungeons & Dragons inspired DLC, as well as a zoo-related one with a bunch of cute and funny animals. I've been having a lot of fun with it, and I also like watching my wife playing it to see the way she chooses to arrange and decorate her museum. She's far better at it than me, by the way. She absolutely zooms through levels while I take a long time to complete them. Probably also because I pause the game a lot. But yeah, I absolutely love 2 Point Museum. The King is Watching is a super innovative city builder roguelite strategy game that has a unique feature of your villagers only working certain tiles that your king is looking at. Super fun to play around with that, as well as the different types of units and buildings and powers that you get access to. Haven't played it in a while because I haven't had the energy for strategy recently, but I can see the devs have added many patches over time as well, and I can tell they're incredibly passionate about this game. I love supporting indie devs, especially when they keep updating and improving their games long after release, and even more so when the game is super unique and fun in an interesting way. We need far more experimental games that take risks. I'm so tired of the AAA game industry right now because 95% of the AAA games that come out are just so bland. The King is Watching is the polar opposite of that, so I hope that if you do give it a shot, you'll love it. Super Fantasy Kingdom is another roguelite city builder that feels very fun to play and has a cute, if a bit too saturated visual style. This one feels more focused on the roguelite elements than The King is Watching, so it will likely take you longer to progress through it. Or maybe I'm just bad at it, that's also entirely possible. But it's tons of fun and very affordable too for the large amount of content and enjoyment you're getting from it. €15 normally, but often on sale. It's still in early access, and it's wild to me that this is the project of one solo dev because it's such a good game. So if you enjoy this genre, please do give this game a try. You'd be supporting a solo dev who has been working very hard on making something fun and who has been listening to feedback and doing their best to improve the game with all the patches they put out. Finally, Tower of Kalimanvo is an indie ARPG inspired by the original Diablo, which absolutely gave me the feeling of playing an old ARPG. I never played the first Diablo, but I grew up with Diablo 2 and it very much scratches that same itch. This one also comes from a solo dev who is very passionate and who has been constantly putting out updates and improving the game based on player feedback. So if you're into this older style of isometric Diablo-like ARPG, this is a great one to play. Of course, I'm always grateful for Dragon Age Origins. I play it every single year so much, and I'm so incredibly happy that it exists and that I can continue to play it and talk about it on this channel. I will always share my love for this RPG because to me it's one of a kind. Nothing else out there is like it, not even the other two games in the trilogy. Speaking of, most of my favorite videos that I made this year are obviously about DAO. I loved writing that huge script for the video about how Lothering, Dragon Age Origins starter town is such a different kind of starter town due to being this in-between place, a moment to take a breath after the inciting incident, Loghain's betrayal at Ostagar, before the proper start of your world-saving quests as a Grey Warden. I've been meaning to make more videos like that, such as the one about all the greedy choices in DAO and how the fact that these choices exist illustrates very well how the power dynamics and structures in Thedas work, how exploiting people is what gives someone in the world more power, and how easy it is to make that choice when you're in the position to do so, even if it's just for a bit of extra material gain that you don't necessarily need. But boy, these videos take many days to put together, sometimes even multiple weeks, so it will take me a while to make more of them. Another video I really loved was the one about the Arl of Redcliffe quest in DAO, specifically about the choice regarding Connor's fate. Ignoring the bad design choice of saving Connor with the help of the mages from the Circle being the best choice that has no drawbacks, this part of the quest is super compelling from an emotional and role-playing perspective. As long as you're able to roleplay genuinely and think about how your warden would feel about the situation and what they're willing to sacrifice for what they consider is a right choice, resolving the situation with Connor is one of the most memorable moments in Origins. Other than my discussion videos, I also loved ranking all of the items in DAO in that huge series: weapons, armors and armor sets, accessories, dog and shale items, and finally all the miscellaneous items, though I couldn't rank traps due to not using them, and I forgot about the consumable tomes. Oops. But yeah, I'm a sucker for research and analysis, so taking hours upon hours to think about the positives and negatives of each item in the game was extremely fun for me. I also think I learned quite a bit about game design, item design specifically, and how I would go about it if I ever managed to make an RPG in the future. So I'll probably rank or score more items from my favorite games next year, maybe from Morrowind or Oblivion, or even Fable: The Lost Chapters, since I haven't gotten the chance to talk about that game properly on this channel yet. I also greatly enjoyed that health versus defense experiment for DAO, and I can't believe it took me this long to realize that yes, in fact, the way I was playing the game in the beginning by putting points into Constitution for everyone is far more comfortable and leads to better results, at least for a player like me who really doesn't do well when they try to use min-maxing builds without adjusting them at least somewhat to more casual gamer preferences. I loved every video I made this year about Dragon Age, so I'm not going to list them all, but I will mention that other than Dragon Age, I loved the few videos I got to make about The Outer Worlds 2, especially the beginner's guide, the dumb and easily distracted build, and the video talking about my top 3 quests in TOE 2. The review was obviously nice too, but I love talking in more depth about my favorite things. So discussion videos about a specific theme or build guides are always going to be far more enjoyable for me than reviews. Because reviews are meant to talk generally about a bunch of different things in a short amount of time, as concisely as you can, since most people don't want to watch an hour-long review. And if you've watched my channel for a long time, you know I'm really bad at being concise because I ramble a lot, ADHD and all. But yeah, I'd say these were my favorite videos for this year. I would have loved to make a lot more, but unfortunately I found out that if I try to make 2 videos a week, I get exhausted and burn out. So the usual Sunday video will have to suffice, even though I have tons of ideas for new videos all the time. When there's a special occasion, I might be able to post an extra video a week, but rarely, and certainly not multiple weeks in a row. Speaking of, what are my plans for this channel for 2026? Well, I do have a few goals that I want to complete. Finish the Awakening guides for the Companions and the Warden Commander, go back to Inquisition builds and finish those as well, post a few Dragon Age Origins challenge runs, I'm currently doing one where I'm only allowed to use Grey Warden items, and make at least 1 or 2 of those longer video essays about DAO, starting with the one about greedy choices. I'll also be making a video where I rank the origin stories from DAO in depth. It was suggested by a viewer, and I've been working on the script, but it's slow going because I want to really go into detail on this one and talk about all the different elements that I think make an origin story feel impactful and satisfying. Other than that, I'll squeeze in videos about whatever game strikes my fancy, whether that's a new game I want to highlight or review, or an older game that I want to make a build or discussion video for, like Morrowind. I definitely want to make more videos about it because it's my wife's favorite game. Of course, I can't tell you exactly when all of these things are getting done, or if indeed I'll be able to successfully complete all the goals I set out for next year. But these are my tentative plans. As always, if you have ideas for videos you'd like to see from me, please let me know and I'll add them to my huge list of ideas. I don't know when I'll get around to them. For example, I still haven't talked about my personal canon world state in Dragon Age Origins, DA2, and Inquisition, even though that was suggested longer than a year ago, so sorry about that. I'm gonna get to it eventually, I promise. Anyway, this has been my second channel anniversary and end of 2025 video. 2025 was a good year for me overall, even if a bit weird or unexpected at times. The end of the year certainly threw me some curveballs, good ones, just surprising, but I can say with certainty that every single week this channel has been one of the highlights of my life. I hope you enjoyed hearing me reminisce about 2025 and look forward to the next year. This is a very cozy video to end the year on, I think. I hope your 2025 was good, and whether it was or wasn't, I wish you a much better 2026. If you like my videos, or even just want to have a calming voice to listen to as you fall asleep, do stick around for future guides, discussion videos, reviews, and highlights that I plan to make about games I care about. As always, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, maybe become a channel member. Everything helps. This has been B-Tier Mutineer. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.